Hi, everybody. This week, I want to formally introduce you to Module 3 and give you a little overview of what you can expect on the MLA quiz. So, Module 3, of course, is located in coursework. And once you're in the coursework folder, then you'll see Module 3. And when you get to Module 3, you'll see that Module 3 is divided into 3 folders because we have 3 focus areas in Module 3. One is the MLA instructional materials and quiz, and that's where you will find all of the items I referred to in this past week's announcement and this current week's announcement. There's the MLA tutorial for you to work through. Here is a link to the MLA formatting and style guide on the Purdue OWL website. You've heard of Purdue University. It is their online writing lab, and that's what the OWL stands for, Online Writing Lab. And there are great resources on what MLA is and how to cite and format using MLA style. Then here is the sample research paper, and I've made reference to that in several places. That is the paper you're going to need to have out while you take the MLA quiz, because the quiz is going to ask you questions about that paper. And in order to be prepared, you need to open up the paper, print a copy, and read through all the margin notes and take note of what it says about how MLA formatting and citation style is being used throughout the research paper. This is where the MLA quiz is not available yet. It will show. It'll become available on, I believe, Wednesday. And you'll have until Sunday at midnight to take the quiz. I just don't want you to take it too early before you've really finished preparing. All right, also in Module 3 is the folder for the profile essay. And you will find in there the actual assignment for the profile paper, a rubric, a sample student paper, some tips, an activity that I have not assigned yet, so please don't do that. And here's a link to some professional profiles, some more student samples, and then this is the actual submission area. So I'm going to work you through this. This profile paper is not due until the 28th of March. So really our focus this week is going to continue to be on MLA formatting. Finally, Module 3 has a little grammar component on pronouns. I have some exercises on pronoun agreement, some exercises on pronoun case, and some exercises on pronoun reference. I would suggest doing these activities before you try to do them in your Achieve study plan. And you may not have it in your Achieve study plan if on the Achieve practice test, it showed that you were proficient in this area. So again, everyone's study plan is going to look a little different within Achieve because it is dependent upon what you showed proficiency in when you took the practice test. All right, so back to the MLA instructional materials. I'm going to go into the sample research paper, and this is a good time to also explain that there was some reading assignments given, and let me just veer off for a second and go into this link for Achieve in the ebook. And if I go down here, it'll take me right to the ebook. And again, this is our electronic textbook, the St. Martin's Guide to Writing. And in it, you'll see here's our whole profile chapter, chapter 3 on writing profiles. And there's an introduction, a guide to reading, and a guide to writing. There's some samples. Last week, you read an example of a profile essay. I've also assigned you guys to read chapter 17, and I'm asking you to review that chapter again before you take the quiz. Within chapter 17, you'll see the student research project in MLA style, and that's the same sample paper that's actually in the course And I'll go back to that in the Module 3 folder. So in the MLA folder, here is the sample paper. And I just want to point out a few things. So here are all the margin notes off to the side right here that I want you to read as you go through the paper. And it's not the content of the paper that's important here. It's that you see how this student uses the resources throughout and how this student documents her sources. So you see some of the obvious stuff like the double spacing that we've learned about, the 12-point font, how the heading gets set up. We see that in the top right-hand corner is the person who wrote the paper, their last name, a space, and then the page number, and that continues on all of the pages. You'll notice that there is a mix between author references being named within a sentence, and sometimes the author or the source is named after in what's called a parenthetical reference or a parenthetical citation. So it's really important to take note of these in-text citations when sometimes the person who wrote the paper, the student, chose to mention the author, like right here, David Gutterson. This student who wrote the paper is using information from a source written by David Gutterson. And at the end of the sentence where the student gives the information, actually uses a quote and says, it puts in parentheses a number 5. That tells us that that came off of page 5 of Gutterson's source. Now, in order to see that source and every other source like Saba and Gaddis, 89, or Cone 22, Friedlander 150, and we can assume most of these are books because they have page numbers. Web sources won't have page numbers. And here we notice this is not even a person's last name. It's the name of an organization. So there must not have been an author named. So take note of these different ways that the writer of this paper has used sources throughout. I'm going to take us right now to the Works Cited page. And that is a separate page at the end of the paper. So here's the paper ends. And then a new page is started and it's entitled Works Cited. And it is arranged alphabetically by the author's last name. And the series of information that's included in the citation can be found in chapter 17 of your book, or I think a great easy way to find out how to do each citation is on that Purdue OWL website on the MLA formatting guide. I don't expect you to memorize how to cite anything, but you should know how to use the tools. And while you take the MLA quiz, you're welcome to use the Purdue OWL site if you had to cite something. So notice that the list of items on the Works Cited page, it's a list of every single source that was cited within the paper. And mostly we see alphabetized authors' last names. Right here, we see that is not a name, but it's a source. And we see that same thing here, a source. And this must be the title because it's in quotation marks. Here's a title, and it must be it's italicized. It must be a book title. And this must be an article title within the larger source called Alliance for the Separation of School and State. And as you go through that Purdue OWL website and our chapter 17, it explains to you that sometimes a source like this, is there a problem? The name of an article is found within a larger source, which the name of the larger source is Alliance for the Separation of School and State. And then we have the rest of the needed publication information required of our citation. And again, depending on what type of source you use, it has its own way of being cited, and you could only find that out through a handbook or something like the Purdue OWL citing guide. So you see these lists of works cited, they're all of them, and they're in alphabetical order by the author's last name or the title if there's no author. That, in a nutshell, is an overview of chapter 3. and of MLA format. I hope that you will reach out if you have questions, and good luck on the quiz.